Are you new to Don't Starve Together and find yourself struggling to stay alive? Well, today I'll be showing you what foods I think every player should know about, and I'll be sharing 3 recipes per dish, so hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to show off some of your new cooking skills. And who knows, maybe you'll finally be able to survive. Now, meatballs, without a doubt, will be a new player's go-to for hunger at any stage of the game. It's incredibly easy to make with a wide range of ingredients. Meatballs require at least 1 meat and 3 edible fillers, but be careful, certain fillers will end up making an entirely different dish. To be safe, just avoid using honey or you end up making honey nuggets, and eggplants, because if you end up using another vegetable as a filler, you'll end up making stuffed eggplant. Side note, with an eye for an eye update, which is the crossover update, morsel with at least 2 eyes will now create bunny stew. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Now, if you ever need one dish and you're going to make one dish for the rest of your time playing, I recommend Meaty Stew. Meaty Stew is one of the best hunger dishes in the game. It provides a giant 150 hunger, which should cover most of your food needs. This dish requires a meat value of 3 and 1 filler that doesn't include twigs, honey, eggs, or mandrakes. I'd highly recommend using most of your big meats for this dish over meatballs. Whenever I start playing on new worlds, I tend to lean towards massive foods like Meaty Stew just to give myself more time in between meals to get things done. Meaty Stew is by far my #1 food recommendation to new players. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Now, pierogis are easily one of the most used healing foods in the game. It might seem very complicated at first because of the requirements needed in order to make it, but don't worry, it's actually very easy and cheap to make. 1 meat, 1 egg, 1 veggie, and 1 filler that's not a twig or a mandrake. Healing for a nice 40 HP for a few simple ingredients doesn't sound bad at all. You could easily just make pierogis for every situation and only have to cook this one dish if you really wanted to. Well, unless you play Wort. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. If you ever get a hold of a tall bird egg, well, the next dish is going to be a life changer. 1 tall bird egg with a veggie value of 1 and fillers, and I recommend twigs, you'll make a tall Scotched Egg, which provides a massive 150 hunger, just like Meaty Stew, but will also heal you for 60 HP. If you don't know how to kill tall birds just yet, that's fine. You can always just steal the egg and run, but do know they will follow you for a very long time before they de-aggro. I'd highly recommend learning how to kill tall birds. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Speaking of tall birds, more than likely you're going to have to end up killing the tall bird to even obtain that egg. And since tall birds drop a guaranteed 2 big meat, the next dish will be perfect. Honey ham. Honey ham is a great food source, healing for 30 and filling your stomach for 75. It does require honey, so setting up a bee farm is highly recommended. Making honey ham is pretty simple. You're going to need a meat value of 1.5 or higher, and at least 1 honey with a filler that isn't twigs, mandrakes, or tall bird eggs. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Bacon and eggs are another great food source that can also take advantage of killing tall birds. Bacon and eggs provide healing and hunger just as honey ham does, but it's a little less healing. It heals for 20 HP and fills your stomach for 75, unless you are Wilson, which if you are, will fill your stomach for 90. It requires 1.25 meat value and 2 egg value, which can either be 2 eggs or 1 tall bird egg. Now, a fun fact about this dish is that it's one of the 3 dishes that can actually use 2 monster meat and not have the food turn into monster lasagna. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Once you obtain dragon fruit from your farms, you can start to make an incredibly useful dish, which can both be used for health and hunger, as this dish provides a solid 40 HP and 75 hunger. Now, dragon fruit might be on the rare side of crops to get, but once you get them and start farming them, you can easily live off of dragon pies, and making them is super easy and cheap, requiring 1 dragon fruit and 3 fillers that don't include meat, mandrakes, or asparagus. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Since we're on the topic of crops, I'd like to mention 3 incredibly useful crops. Now, the first 2 are going to come in a pair, which is one of the reasons why they are so useful. Tomaru and potatoes. You can grow both almost all year round, and they are a crop combination, so they require little to no fertilization and just a bit of care. Both tomaru and potatoes can be used as vegetables or as filler for any other dish. As well, if you needed a bit of healing, you can always just cook them on a fire pit, and they both provide a decent 20 HP per munch. The third very useful crop is pumpkins. Just like the other 2 crops, they can easily be used as vegetables or fillers, but what really makes them special is that just by eating them raw or cooked, they provide a 37.5 hunger per munch, and since you can produce these in large numbers, you can satisfy all your hunger needs with pumpkins alone. Not to mention, if you're playing as Wirt, she is given a 33% extra hunger for eating any vegetables, fruits, or butterflies. So in this case, just eating 1 pumpkin gives her 50 hunger. Now, if you have a bee farm or you just have spare honey you can use, you could turn them into pumpkin cookies, which provide the same hunger but an added 15 sanity. Recommended recipe is 1 pumpkin, 2 honey, and 1 twig. Now, if you make it to spring, you can start collecting lure plants, which provides a steady source of leafy meat, which can be used for a wide range of dishes. But we will be focusing on 2 that I think everyone should at least know. The first being Beefy Greens, and the second being a jelly salad. Beefy Greens is an incredibly useful dish, providing 40 HP and 75 hunger for 1 leafy meat and 3 full veggies. Now, to put that in perspective, Meatballs provides 3 HP and 62.5 hunger. Lure plants produce almost all year round, except for winter, and the leafy meat you acquire from them can also be fed to a bird to produce eggs, which then can be used for the previous dishes we mentioned. So when you see a lure plant, grab it when you can and place it on a boat so you can start mass producing foods. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Now, the second leafy meat dish is jelly salad. It's more about the sanity than it is about the hunger. It still provides a 37.5 hunger, but a massive 50 sanity, which is equal to ice cream. It requires 2 leafy meats and 2 honey, making it easier and more accessible than ice cream. Now, with jelly salad, I only have 1 recommended recipe, but I will show you the other 2 ways, but I do not recommend this in any way, as the royal jelly used in the recipe is way too valuable to be wasted on this dish. Trail Mix is a great early game healing item as it provides nice 30 HP for very cheap ingredients. Trail Mix requires 1 birch nut, both raw or cooked, 1 berry, 1 fruit, which could be another berry, and a filler. More than likely, you'll be chopping down trees to build chests or many other things for your base anyways, so why not take advantage of some of the birch nuts you get from it? Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Another great early game food that is really easy to make is butter muffins, requiring only butterflies, vegetables, and fillers. This dish provides a nice 20 HP and 37.5 hunger, unless you're playing WX or Wirt. Now, WX gains 52.5 hunger since this is his favorite dish, and on the other hand, Wirt gains 50 since she gains 33% extra hunger from vegetables and butterflies. Now, if you either play as Wendy or have a friend that plays Wendy, you can really start to pump these out. Abigail is such an amazing tool for this job, as she can be set to aggro and have her kill butterflies as they spawn. If you don't have a flower in base, you can always just transplant one for convenience. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Fish sticks are another great and easy healing food. You can easily get fish from the ponds throughout the game, and with a few cheap ingredients you could turn that fish into 40 HP. If you only ever make one fish dish, it has to be fish sticks. If you're like me and normally don't get fish for food, then a good example for this dish could be used when you're about to fight Antlion during your first year. More than likely, you'll be fishing the Oasis Lake to obtain desert goggles, and for those of you who know the randomness of the lake, it might take you a while to get the blueprint. So you'll end up with a bit more fish than you're used to. Might as well turn that into a healing food for the fight just in case you take some damage. Fish sticks is another dish that can use 2 monster meats in its recipe. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Now, Salsa Fresca could be an easy sanity food that you could produce tons of with the help of farming. It requires toma root and onions, which are very common crops, and like we mentioned before, you'll most likely be already farming toma roots with potatoes. Not only that, but onions grow in the exact same seasons as toma root, so growing them as well is recommended not only for this dish, but as a great filler for most dishes. This dish provides a nice 33 sanity and 25 hunger. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. Now let's say you don't have any onions to make salsa fresca. Well, you can always just use toma root with a bit of ice to make vegetable stinger. Now the requirements for the dish are simple: toma root, ice, and 1.5 veggie value. You could use asparagus in the place of the toma root, but it's more likely that you'll have toma roots over asparagus. It provides 33 sanity and 25 hunger. Now for my Winona mains out there, you would already know this, but for those of you who don't, this is her favorite dish, which when she eats this, she gains the same sanity, but instead of 25 hunger, she now gains 40. Now, here are 3 recipes that I recommend. There's so many recipes in DST, it could be overwhelming at times. So the goal of the video was to shine some light on a few recipes that maybe you didn't know and hopefully help you survive. Now remember, these are recipes that I believe everyone should at least know about, but let me know in the comments which recipe you think every player should know, or any other guides you think I should cover. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.